All right, guys, good to be back with you once again. And this time we're going to play the other famous NES hockey game, which is, of course, Blades of Steel. We'll go ahead and switch straight on over to this, and we'll just go ahead and get started. Blades of Steel, as you can see, was made in '88. I was actually wrong in the last video about NES Ice Hockey. Ice Hockey actually comes from 1988. It was early 1988 that it came out in Japan, not in 1987. So that is definitely on me. My apologies to those of you who are looking to me to be extremely accurate about everything, because sometimes I get things a couple months off. This game came out on the Famicom disk system first. It was known as Konami Hockey, which is something that most of us probably didn't know. The difference between Blades of Steel and Konami Hockey, I think you can't fight in Konami Hockey. If you can, I haven't done it yet. So I think that's what the difference is. But again, don't quote me on that. I might be wrong, and maybe later on we'll prove ourselves wrong here. This, of course, is the North American version of the game, which is the one that most of us know and love and are very, very familiar with. I don't even remember which team I am. Okay, I'm the blue team. Alright, it's been a little while since I've played this game seriously. There you go. So you hit A repeatedly, and that'll get you in the fight, and then when you get to this screen, you want to push B, and then the guy who loses the fight ends up being thrown in the penalty box. And then you push A to score the goal, and then he's out of the penalty box. So we had a power play for about 3 seconds, and we scored a goal. How about that? Like I was saying before when we were playing ice hockey, with Blades of Steel, once you get used to it, and you remember what the controls are, it's actually not a very difficult game. Of course, now that I've said that, I'm probably going to wind up not playing as well as I could. Now, there's a lot of similarities you can see here between this game and the original ice hockey. For example, the fact that you control the goalie in both games, which can be really frustrating. You can't change the guy who's doing the face-off, which doesn't really matter because there's absolutely no difference between one guy and the next. And the B button is either to pass it or to shoot it. Alright, and so if you don't have the puck and you push B, you end up changing players, which is sort of the equivalent of passing it. It's a pretty simple game when you get down to it. All of this stuff is, pretty easy to figure out, pretty basic, pretty sort of cut and paste. I think on the face-offs you're supposed to hit B rapidly. I can't remember, and I didn't bother to look at the manual for this game. And this is one of those games where you're like, okay, who am I controlling here? Okay, why is the computer going way back there like that? If you hold down the A button when you're acting as the goalie, you can hold on to the puck. Anyway. When it comes to fighting, the best approach is to simply keep punching. But then you have to be careful because remember that B passes. So you push B to punch, but when you're done with the fight, if you want to shoot, you want to push A. Anyway, there you go. Just like most of you guys, I played this game over and over again when I was a kid. Played it to the point where I got really sick of it. It is a pretty basic hockey game. I can't remember if there's icing in this game or not. The hard part about this game is what you saw right there, which is, you're trying to move up and trying to get in front of the guy before he gets a shot off. But because you moved up, your goalie also moved up, which means he's out of position. That's just one of those NES hockey things. So this game is fun, though it doesn't... Whoops, sorry for hitting the microphone here. This game is fun, though it doesn't quite have the depth of the earlier ice hockey game, believe it or not. Ice hockey has a bit more depth because you can, change your guys around and stuff like that. Whereas with this game, all of the teams are the same. The only difference is their color. The only real strategy you have is trying to figure out when to fight and what to do with the fights and stuff like that. And I'm not quite sure what it is that the announcer is saying when you pass it. I've never been able to figure it out. When I do a video on this game, I think I'm going to finally do some research and try to figure out what's going on. I mean, the idea of using like a voice sample like this in an NES game was kind of like a new thing, I would say, back then. 1988, so that would have been pretty, you know, special. I mean, like what Bases Loaded had voice samples, right? But for the most part, you know, most NES games did not, and the ones that did only had like one thing or something like that he would say. So anyway, I mean, it's not like, for example, if you're playing like Mario or whatever, Mario on the NES never would say like any actual words to you; it would just make noises. So that in itself is kind of innovative given the constraints of the system. The graphics are not awful, though there's still that sort of like, you know, kind of like, I don't know, like kids Microsoft Paint, you know, type of graphics. Anyway, the fights in NHL hockey for the Genesis are a lot more interesting than that. And then you get moments like this. This is the sort of thing that you just don't see in NHL hockey, right? Which is a much more like advanced, like an actual hockey game. It's only in games like this where you have like 4 attacking players standing around the goal and there's like 1 defenseman who's not doing anything, right? Anyway. The other issue with this game, as you can tell, is that when you start scoring, like, you know, the game starts to slow down to a crawl and you just like keep going forever and nothing's ever going to stop you from scoring because the computer barely knows what it's doing. Yep, and that's the end of the first period. So we'll go ahead and we'll play a full game here, and we'll see how we do. So you change sides. This part is really cool. These, you know, cutscenes and stuff in between periods are actually pretty well done. And yeah, I mean, I don't know why the computer keeps doing that. Yeah, see, that's one of the things you can do in this game, you know, stop them from getting the puck in any sort of good position by simply initiating a fight, and then we get a one-on-one. How about that? So you win the fight, you get a one-on-one, and then get another fight. The other thing, if you've been paying attention, is that the background of the fight changes depending upon where you are in the ice, which is kind of cool, I guess. But yeah, I mean, overall, if you're going to compare this game to ice hockey, I don't think that this game is better. I think that this game's probably like a rung below, because it ends up being kind of the same thing over and over again. You know, it's and plus, because this is, you know, 8-bit NES, this is one of these games where you really have to use your imagination, and then you get wacky things like that happening every now and then. Oh, I'm not sure how that got in. He stopped that, but I guess it went underneath his skate or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, so we get another goal out of that one, and now it's whatever, like 7-3. Anyway, again, if you're talking about like this is 1988, this was certainly one of the best hockey games on any system. And there weren't a whole ton. You know, NES didn't have a lot of hockey games. I'm not sure about the Sega Master System, exactly what it had, but I know that for the NES in North America, you're looking at basically this game and ice hockey at that time, and that's about it. There's a Jalico game that came out in 1993, which nobody's really played because it came out in 93. And then there was also Wayne Gretzky Hockey, which came out a couple of years later, I want to say. And that game's bad. Anyway. So this game in Japan was part of the suite of sports games that Konami came out with. It was this game and a game called Exciting Basket, which we know as Double Dribble. There was also Exciting Baseball, and I want to say there was, I think that there was like a billiards game or something like that, like Exciting Pool, I think they called it. Anyway, that was definitely an interesting period for Konami. Exciting Baseball, by the way, is a game that never came out in the US. That's one of the worst Konami games of all time. That game is just horrible. Anyway, stuff like that happens in this game. That wasn't very much fun. So, 7-5. And yeah, I mean, when you play this game, you can feel that this is really a Famicom Disk System game. It's a lot like a lot of other Famicom Disk System games where it's just like as basic as it can possibly be. Part of the reason for that is because the disk system was limited in the amount of space that it could use. A lot of the better NES games that come out later, when you're thinking of like Tecmo Basketball or whatever, use sort of like an expanded amount of memory because they were able to get different mappers working for the cartridges that would allow for more memory, which means more programming than the games that came out before. There's actually one of the problems with the Famicom Disk System, which is that it was very, very limited in the amount of space that it could hold. So, like, when the system started in, 1987 or whatever, like, it was doing, not too bad, but by the time, like, 1990 or 1991 comes around, it's really, really old because it can't, take advantage of all of the mapper things and all the other things that were happening. It's one of the reasons why the FDS ended up dying off in Japan the way that it did. It's just that the games would end up looking pretty bad. There were things that like the system could take advantage of if the games utilize them, like having the ability to save your game and stuff. So Legend of Zelda was originally a Famicom Disk System game. And one of the things that was helpful with that is that you could actually save your game. But eventually the NES also had at least the capability, or the Famicom as well, the capability of using a battery backup system to, save things for you, so you didn't have to start everything over right from scratch. So like the one advantage that the FDS had ended up being kind of moot, especially by the time the NES became like a real big thing in North America. If you have an old NES unit, if you look at the bottom, you'll notice that there is there's a port that you can get to. If you there's like a little plastic thing you can take off and get to a port that's never really been used. That was originally there, intended to allow the NES to be expanded and to include a disk system, but it never happened. By the time they would have done something like that, the disk system was basically like no longer relevant in Japan. All right, score another goal. So this is the sort of fighting system I think they could have used in a game like Base Wars. If you saw that review on my other channel, I really think that Blaze of Steel does fighting a lot better than Base Wars does. In Base Wars, like as soon as you get into a fight, if you're against the computer, it spams things like crazy, and it's just not that much fun. But in this game, when you get into a fight, it's a lot of fun, and like there's a little bit of strategy to it. It's slow enough that you can actually try to figure things out. The one thing I just don't understand about this is why I've got a computer opponent that keeps going backwards like that, but whatever. And then again, to channel my inner James Rolfe, like part of the problem with this game is that the A button shoots, right, instead of B. Anyway. I swear, when I was a kid once, I think I actually beat this game. I think I beat all of the teams, because I can remember getting to like the very end of the game and like trying to, you know, like not ice the puck, but trying to like ice out the time or whatever, getting the puck as the goalkeeper and just sort of like, you know, holding on to it forever. I don't remember that. This would have been like 25 years ago, so I don't remember things that clearly. Shoot. That was really bad. Alright, so we go ahead and give up another goal. Good times. 10-7. But just like ice hockey, this is one of those games that is realistic if you like 1980s hockey scores. And really, the best thing to do against either the computer or even if you're playing against a second player, really the best thing to do is to just shoot as much as you possibly can. Come on, get back here. All right, easy as that. And yeah, you can see the ref taking him off, which is really, really cool. Yep, and that's it. They don't even show you the end of the shot. Just take everything away. All right, so there we go. Junior League. So maybe next time we play this, we'll play one of the harder leagues, but win 10-7. Simple as that. Yeah, that part's really cool too. And there you go. There's Blades of Steel. All right, so there we have it. There's Blades of Steel for you. That gives a little bit more. We've got one more game to play before I put together the big video about NHL hockey. So look for that either tonight or tomorrow, probably tomorrow. And then we'll go from there and see what we have. I hope you enjoyed that one, and I'll talk with you again. Bye-bye.